for a second. Sorry. No, not that guy. I've got too many email accounts. And I keep logging in to get the minute, the agenda as yeah. All right. So let's call the meeting to order. I am going to Travis, Tom,
Here.
Brian Wong. No Brian. George Houston, not here. John Singletary.
Here.
Thank you. John Caldera. No. Joshua Scharf.
Here.
All right. P.T. Wood.
I am here.
All right. And we don't have Terry. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got quorum. So we are a go and we're good to proceed. All right. So let's start off with the approval of last meeting's minutes. Hopefully we've all had a chance to view those. If there are, I will go ahead and accept a motion to accept the meeting minutes as proceeded, as
So
presented.
move.
All right, we've got a motion from, sorry, I'm looking at my list, so I didn't hear who was that made that motion.
John Singletary.
All right, thanks, John. We've got a motion, and can we have a second? Cool. Got a motion and a second. Any changes that needed to be taken a look at? Are we good? Not hearing any call for any amendments. All in favor, signify
Aye.
by raising your hand or raising the voice. We got, I count 1, 2, 3. And John, did you give an aye? And Josh, are you okay with the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And we are unanimous in voting for accepting the minutes. So the minutes are accepted from the last meeting. All right. Looks like we have one person in the from the public. Are there any comments that you would like to share with the committee? All right. Not hearing a call for public comments, we'll go ahead and proceed to old business. So looking at our agenda, we've got, we talked last time about us getting short on time. So we're looking at doing something more in-house as far as coming up with criteria for analysis. We were looking to see if we could do something amongst ourselves as far as coming up, with criteria. So let's discuss that a little bit. And Barb, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
To go back a little bit, we do have meeting minutes from September 30th that we need to vote on. Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder on that. Yep. We had missed that last time. Also, in addition to the previous meeting, we've got the meetings from the 30th. So, I would entertain a motion to accept those meeting minutes as well.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor from PT Wood. Do we get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and a second from John. Any discussion? Cool. Not hearing a call for discussion. All in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5 for John and Joshua. I've got 5. Joshua, I didn't see your hand up. All right, 5 in favor. Any opposed? Not seeing opposition. The motion passes 5-0. Thanks. All right. John, I'm not sure when you jumped on, but we were talking about the first item on the agenda, which is for the old business and where we left it last time. Hold on a second. We're good? Okay. Before I go forward. Travis, you had a hand up, or is that from the last vote? You good? Okay. So we kind of talked about some ways that we could kind of do some of this criteria analysis in-house. There were suggestions that we come back, think about some of the salaries, the ranges that we might look at to move forward with. And one of the things that I was thinking about, if we're going to do that, I don't think that we could get that done just doing the meetings bi-weekly. But what we could look at doing is maybe breaking into some subcommittees to parcel out some of that work that can be done in between the meetings, and then the subcommittees would report back to the group as a whole on our weekly meetings, if that's the direction that we wanted to go into. And also, additionally, we were going to have Mercer kind of join us towards the end and talk about what they had come up with in addition to what we're going to talk about here now. So, how does that sound? So, thanks, Barb, for popping or Annabelle, popping the requirements, the recommendations that we're going to do. Let's go over those one more time. So we're looking at coming up with recommendations for the annual base compensation for members of the General Assembly, base compensation for the General Assembly members for necessary attendance at meetings or functions. Also the annual salaries for the statewide office holders, including the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, and state treasurer. And then also the per diem sum for the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, or any of the minority leaders who may be acting as governor on a temporary basis. And if you recall, all of those came from different sources. Some of them are tied to other judges' salaries, and some of them are just numbers that are just provided. So thinking about how we can split that workload out into subgroups if we decide that we want to go forward and tackle that ourselves. So then something else to consider as far as our recommendations. The amount of compensation paid in government service and in the private sector. And the one that sticks out for me, to me, for this one here is the private sector, because I didn't really see how we were going to incorporate or find similar positions in the private sector to compare against. And I'm not even sure that we had asked of Mercer to take a look at that information. So we hadn't really talked about that. Maybe that's a good time. Maybe this is a good time to actually have that conversation about that.
One of the criteria that I presented or proposed last meeting was looking at the median income. Would median income be satisfactory for private sector for Colorado, or do we not feel like that's enough of a similar qualification?
You mean broad-based median income across all of Colorado?
Yes.
Yeah, that would incorporate earnings and salaries from private and public sectors. So yeah. Joshua.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could include it in the report, but honestly, I don't think it's relevant. These are part-time positions, and median income is going by definition to include full-time positions. There is only one qualification for serving in one of these positions, and that is getting elected. There is only one qualification, and that is getting elected. There are no other, and indeed one of the conflict, which we'll talk about later. One of the arguments is that people who maybe can't afford to take the position because they don't have enough other income are currently theoretically anyway blacked out from being able to run being able to serve. So I guess we could include it if we wanted to include the number so that we could feel the charge of having looked at it. But I honestly don't see where it's relevant.
Right. Well, one thing I thought about is besides just the qualifications of the job, I mean, what are the duties and expectations of the job that may more align with some positions in the private sector.
I think that's a whole nother analysis that would be probably 10 other meetings that we could discuss and dig down to. So do we go that far? In the interest of kind of time and what we're looking at is, I guess, how do we differentiate between how we're currently paying them, which is this, percentage of the judicial pay, which is kind of different than the other states. Do we deviate from that much, or can we? And then two, I guess just comparing how we pay compared to other states, which would, allow us to analyze, do we change the formula of how they're being paid currently? I mean, I think I'm just trying to think of ways that we can simplify and get to the point on this one, because if we start looking at, well, what's the job that we would compare this to, then, I mean, that would take way too much time.
I don't, hold on. I see you, Jeff, just a second. I don't necessarily know that it would have to entail that much, but I mean, there are similar jobs that people that involve, I don't know, budgeting or, you know what I'm saying? So Yeah, John.
Turn off my mic there.
Okay.
Yeah, let me, a couple quick things. Same for time's sake. I'll agree with Joshua. You know, we keep saying that we might like budgeting experience or private sector. The fact of the matter is, if you're elected, you're elected. If you're elected and you never show up to work, but they still elect you, you are still their representative. So we are not the ones to really judge if they are doing a good job or what their skill set should be or what we think is appropriate output from them. That is up to their constituents for whatever reasons their constituents want to elect them. You know, right now we have a very decent system of pay, which is they get a percentage of what judges get paid. I'm fine with that. You know, I think the question on our plate is, you know, do we want to do something less than that? Do we want to do something more than that? And so I will continue to put out my simple idea that we want our politicians to be closer to the people, to have regular jobs like the people. And the best way to give them a increase in pay is to recommend, and it's all up to them, they'd have to bring it to the people, of course, shortening Colorado's session. We have a very long session at 120 days. There are other states that do it much less. Keep the pay the same, give them less time in office. But I'm not inclined to give them a pay raise other than that, or especially when times are tight here in the Colorado budget. And I want to be careful that, you know, we're not the board of directors saying what our executive salary should be. You know, we've got to make a recommendation. And just so all of you know where I am, it doesn't matter what goes on in the private sector. It doesn't matter what other states do. It matters what we do here in Colorado. And if we want to reward them more for their incredible service, let's ask them to do a little less work. As somebody who follows the state legislature religiously, I'm always amazed that, you know, 90% of the work that gets done in the last 2 weeks of the session, no matter what. And I swear we could have a 2-week session and we'd get the same amount of bills passed and the same stuff. So that's where I am. Just so everyone knows, this is not a private sector job, and we shouldn't even look at the private sector. End of my rant. Thank you for listening.
Okay. And like I said, I was just looking in what the bill said. And so if we were following that, then that some way should be included. However, point taken. So the other thing I was that occurred to me is that we know that the question that I think we need to address is if we're going to make some just basically accepting the way that we're currently funding the positions and the percentage based off of the judges, is that working for right now? Could we do something better, or you know, or make changes in the way, either percentages or whatever? So I would like to look at that as part of it. PT.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind looking at that simply because it seems wildly arbitrary to me. I will say that being kind of a legislative wonk, I appreciate the job that they do, and I think they need more time to do a better job, and could probably be there year round doing that job, and it'd be great. So John and I are going to land on the exact opposite side of that argument. All due respect there, though. But I do think that looking at an alternative to that judge based system probably makes some sense. Looking at what it costs to live in the state, looking at, why at a pay rate that makes sense for the average Coloradan, particularly one that lives 5, 6, 8 hours from Denver. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm. All right, thanks. Thanks, PT. Travis.
So I think again to go to task at hand and how we go through this is comparing what the other pay is based on cost of living, other states, compare that to what what the numbers are, compared to what they're currently getting paid under the current judicial system, and then be able to recommend from there that, hey, it's a big disparity. Let's just we need to update that, or the disparity is not that bad. Let's just continue how we're doing, and that makes our job easy because we're able to adequately recommend it. So we know what the pay is compared to other states, compared to cost of living. We know what the current system of pay is. Does it change? Can we change it? So I think that's the easiest way to proceed with this and going that way. So
Yeah.
it's not that we're using private sector as our judgment. We're not going with John's opinion or PT's opinion. We're just looking at that to say, all right, is that pay that much different? Because let's say the pay's not that much different and we just go with the current structure, then the recommendation is easier.
Okay.
I don't know if that was concise enough. I was kind of rambling there for a second.
No, but I get your point though, Travis. Absolutely. Joshua.
Yeah, in terms of comparing to other states, again, I think specifically in terms of legislators, we have at least some information on that. Again, I'm not opposed to seeing that, get checked and having Mercer take a look at it and come up with their own comparison. But the immediate comparison is that Colorado pays more than other comparable states in terms of part-time legislators. We're the top third I don't have unfortunately I didn't open the spreadsheet, but we're certainly in the upper half. We're pretty close to the top. Certainly in the upper third, I think, in overall pay. And then again, we do, I think, better than most when it comes to places that live or people that where they would have to like get a hotel room. They would have to find some place to stay. So I'm not sure that in and of itself justifies an increase in pay. Secondly, the cost of living is to a great extent, not to a complete extent, but to a great extent, the result of decisions made by the legislature. I don't see any reason they need to be indemnified against the consequences of their own decisions. If they pass bills that make it more expensive to live here, then they should not be getting automatic pay increases to cover that expense. No. Let me finish.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's they want to make it easier for people to live here. That's fine. They want to make it more expensive. That's fine. If these are unintended consequences, they're still responsible for in part for those things. And I think that's and I don't see why they should get covered that nobody else gets that. And then lastly, I think there's we're talking about tax increases. We're talking about shortfalls. Cities having shortfalls. The state looks like there may be a Tabor refund this year, but the state having to scramble last year and probably scramble this year to cut services and to cut spending, turn around and give legislators or even the executives a pay increase seems like exactly the kind of thing that people didn't like in 1994 at the congressional level. So I think we need to be sensitive to that as well.
Yeah, I guess my thing is I think regular people do get raises based off of cost of living. I mean, you wouldn't go to a job that didn't, as costs went up, your pay just stayed stagnant or went down,
Oh, yes, I
Well,
would, because I
yes.
have.
What,
Yeah,
why?
there's nothing like that in the private sector. I mean, they try to give raises where they can, but there's nothing. There's not. I mean, there's no automatic. I mean, you get a COLA for Social Security. Nobody in the private sector gets an automatic pay increase because of it.
I mean, doesn't that the way they attract employees
Well,
by compensation?
well, you try, but that may not be possible. I mean, there are years when company doesn't do well, or it's a bad economy and nobody gets a bonus. There. I mean, there consequences for not, and you don't always get a pay increase because of it. No, I mean you'd like to. I mean, if it's purely inflation, eventually it filters down. There's more money floating around, but no, I mean, if there's something that's costing your cost of living to go, and we'll pick something, and it's politically neutral. I'm just picking this this is not a program to solve this problem. But if the cost of housing goes up because for whatever reason, that doesn't necessarily mean the cost of food goes up. So you may have, this is not necessarily general inflation. This may be something that's a specific issue that needs to be solved or dealt with or is being distorted. And the company isn't necessarily going to, I mean, they might not want you to get evicted, but you're not, there's no automatic cost of living increase because your rent goes up.
No, I'm not talking about individual factors. I'm just talking about the overall cost of living. I mean, you see that in the way, I mean, the cost of living in California is higher than what it is in Colorado, and the pay in California reflects that. So I think it is baked into the system, or at least,
There are places that are more affordable and less affordable. People are leaving California because it's less affordable. People aren't moving to Colorado because housing has become so expensive. We're one of the most unaffordable housing. Again, policy aside, whatever's causing it, just what it is.
So
Right.
kind of
So-
where my argument is that we're not using this right now as a basis of our determination on the salary. Let's just have it there as so that we looked at it so that when we make our recommendation, we know that, hey, cost of living was there, but I don't think we're making an argument now that that's what we should base it on.
Solely that.
I can
Yeah.
agree with. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that I'm, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Those
So
judges
really,
aren't
we're trying to
judges.
determine what factors that we're just going to look at so that way we can go back and say, hey, should this pay even be higher? Because we may come back and say, well, you're going to get a 3% raise because the judicial says that, and that's kind of in line based on what we're seeing. There's a recommendation.
Well,
Mhm.
I believe the judicial branch gets a cost of living bump. I'm not certain if that's the case. And I agree with it. Just because inflation goes up doesn't mean they should get paid more or anyone should get paid more. Especially since they are the policymakers that make the laws that affect a lot of the costs of Colorado. They're not the Federal Reserve by any means, but
No.
they certainly have a great deal to do with this. So,
You don't think there's other factors
of course, there are other
they're
factors.
involved in that besides just the legislation?
Of course, there are other factors, but one of the prime reasons why Colorado is unaffordable has to do with regulations from the state. That's one of the areas. Colorado's inflation rate from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is consistently higher than the national average, and that's policy driven.
So
I only saw the ones that I saw. Now
Yeah.
it's only
we'll solve the
0.1%.
conversation, but it doesn't help us pick out what points we're going to use to make this decision.
Yeah, I'd like us to start voting on some things so that I can be outvoted and move on to other issues. So, all of the things equal, they've got a system that works. They can keep the system that works. Our recommendation is just that, a recommendation, and they will do what they wish. They will be the ones who have to explain to their constituents why they're giving themselves a pay raise.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And also, I don't know, just out of curiosity, by the federal constitution, it was one of the earliest in the Bill of Rights and just got passed a few years back, was that no Congress can give themselves a pay raise. They can only give a future Congress a pay raise. I kind of like that too. I don't like that Congress has put themselves on a continual COLA bump, if you will. I believe elected officials should make the decision for themselves and defend their decision to their constituents. If they want to double their pay, they can double their pay, but they're going to have to answer to their constituents. I think any sort of COLA increase or regular bump is a cop out for not explaining that what you do is worthwhile to your constituents.
Well, and I think that the way that the salaries for the state electeds, I think it incorporates that thought as well. So, and Josh, sorry, I didn't mean to run over you. I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The
Mhm.
bill is written so that anything that's passed here, there has to be an intervening election.
So I think to John's point, let's vote today on what we want to compare to, just so we know what we're comparing. You know, we're not voting necessarily to change or make a recommendation right now, but in the interest of let's get moving on this, let's vote on what the considerations we want to compare to the other states and pay is, so we know what to compare to on the current pay to see if any changes are going to be recommended.
Okay. Do we want to narrow it down as far as the criteria to maybe two or three things to so that we don't get overwhelmed with data?
I'm not sure what population really, or maybe even geographic size. I don't know if those are really important. I think, location is, if you have to travel 8 hours, there should be some metric there. The cost of living, the cost of labor, what that pension piece is, those all make sense to me to consider.
Mm-hmm. So, first one on the list is cost of living. I think that's a factor that should be considered.
Yes. So do we vote on, say, three things? Cost of living, cost of labor. I like the other idea that John had in another meeting, which is legislative session days. So how many days are actually working?
I don't see legislative session days on that list, but I think that's what we hire them
We
for.
can add that. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is let's, throw that one as part of there, and for the purposes of time and specificity, let's pick 3 or 4. I'm just throwing out a number though, and we vote
me
on
too.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't said anything, but I don't think we have the authority to determine how many legislative days there are. I think that's set by some sort of rule in the legislature. I don't think we have the authority to change that. I mean, if we wanted to go through, I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of my understanding.
Well, we don't have the authority to change anything that's in the Constitution. The amount of legislative.
Can I finish? I didn't interrupt you.
You're right. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So I kind of been listening here, and I appreciate all these the other input. And I ran for the legislature, and I lived away in southeastern Colorado in a very small community, and it's tough, and it was tough to make that determination. But that's neither here nor there, except that I think all parts of Colorado ought to be adequately represented, and I obviously right now the cost of living I think ought to be in there. Population, we've grown, even since I ran, we've grown from like whatever it was to, I think in a House district now it's what, 700,000 people, or I mean, it's a bunch. I'm probably off. A Senate seat is almost 800,000. So, there's a lot of responsibility, and and it's easy to say the legislature as 120 days, but that's absolutely not true if you're going to stay in office, because you're obligated to go to almost a meeting at least 3 or 4 meetings a week or more, to help your constituents. So I think those are all things that ought to be taken into consideration here. And geographic site, and it's easy to talk about cost of living and those kind of things. Colorado's expensive, and I think it's a stretch to say the legislature is responsible for all that because of their laws. People want to live in Colorado. People spend a lot of money for houses. People come in here to entertain themselves. The marketplace is what determines a lot of the cost of living in Colorado. I mean, housing is huge cost in Colorado. I'm in the real estate business myself, and that's a big deal. And it wasn't. And we don't encourage, the legislature doesn't necessarily encourage that by some kind of restrictions or allocations. I think we're getting too far in the weeds on some of these things, and and we need to make some decisions based on a few things. But we're sitting here saying, for example, and I don't know where we separate these things, but the governor and the statewide elected officials, the governor in the state of Colorado makes $134,000. That's an embarrassment. I mean, that's an embarrassment. And we had one governor in recent times had to put together a committee to help make his house payment, because they made $85,000 a year. I just think we need to make it to where we're realistic on not too much and not too small. Colorado's a good place to live, and we need to treat people right. And people that run for office, to me, are exceptional. And I'm a Democrat, but I respect everybody that runs for office, because it's a tough chore. And if you ever ran, you'd know that. And I appreciate it. Public service is a big deal to me, and I think we ought to appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Joshua.
So as it happens, just to let you know, I did run for the state legislature a couple of times as well. So that's and it would not have been easy, but I still ran, and I ran knowing the salary, and I ran knowing what the consequences would be, and we would have to find a way to make it work financially. Number two, I don't think there's anything, you're talking about living far away. That's absolutely true. And there is a per diem, there is a higher per diem built in for people who would have to pay, pay for lodging overnight if they would have to stay in Denver. And there should be. That's a reasonable consideration. Also, the mileage. If you're driving farther, you get compensated for the mileage you have to drive. That makes perfect sense. So I think those things are already baked into it. In terms of the other stuff, people moving here, people aren't moving here so much anymore. We're about at zero in terms of the state, in terms of net immigration and net in migration and net out migration. And part of that is because housing is expensive. And absolutely, the state legislature has a role in how expensive housing is. Absolutely, they pass laws that have to do with that. And it is on the bill. There is something to do with that. Every year there is something to do with that. They don't have anything to do with that. Is simply not true. So I have no problem with making sure that people who live in Durango, or people who live down in the southeastern part of the state where it's a long drive, are able, that in and of itself should play no factor. Right? I mean, that should play no factor in whether or not someone is able to serve. And right now that's built in, and it should stay built in.
Yeah, but we should also look at it in making sure that those mechanisms for those cost of lodging and stuff like that, so that they have to be tied to something, so that as they increase, the increases get covered, right? And I'm not sure if they're just fixed numbers in how they are adjusted, or they just adjusted only at the time when the committee gets together to talk about it. So Barb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are expecting Leah from Mercer to join us this afternoon to help come discuss the factors and land on factors, whereas of course the committee votes on everything, but from their perspective so that we can walk away today with decided factors and take the next step. So I say that to say is there looks like we have an attendee on the line, and I just wanted to ask the person who is on the line with the phone number, one moment, 678-644 ending in 5987. Is that you, Leah? And it looks like that number is on mute if you're speaking.
Are you able to unmute them,
Mm,
Barb?
I'm not sure. I'll check with Annabelle.
They have the ability to unmute themselves, and I've asked them to unmute, but I have so far
Okay.
no response.
All right. Well, maybe if we continue the discussion, can you reach out to Leah and see if someone from Mercer is still planning on jumping on?
I certainly will. I'll check my email to see if she emailed me back, and it looks like that number hopped off.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
All
So-
right.
I think, again, going back to it, is that I'm not making an argument that we should pay people more, should pay them less. I'm just making the argument to let's look at these factors so we know what numbers we can go to, and that way we can start taking action. So in no way am I saying legislators should be paid more or less at this time, but I do think we should compare, at least know what the numbers are on the pay for other states that have a comparable cost of living, comparable whatever other factors. And so that's what I would like to see today, so we can actually have these meetings mean something and we're moving in that direction.
Gotcha. So, before we do that, are there any factors that anyone has considered important that aren't on this list already? Because this is kind of rudimentary.
I
Okay.
don't see legislative days in session on that list.
Length of session.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I've got that one down. So, as far as cost of living, I think I've heard enough people say that one should be one of our consideration criteria. Does anybody object to having that one as being one that we would look at?
I object, but I will be overruled.
Okay.
Or outvoted, I think would be the
Outvoted. Okay. Yeah. All right. So with only one person speaking against, can we just say we'll put cost of living as one of them? All right. So that's one. Cost of labor. I'm a little torn on that one. What do you all think?
I'm not entirely opposed to it, but you have to
Mhm.
define labor.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. I'm still a little fuzzy on how that would be calculated, I guess.
So I would say no, because it's not specific enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be too much to get specific.
Okay. Agreed.
Josh has a comment though. Josh has a comment.
Oh, Joshua.
Well, I mean, could that just be the comparable, given the other factors, we're talking about pay, per diem, mileage, pension, and perhaps other, if reasonable, if feasible, other benefits. Could that just be what other comparable positions make in those other states? We say, well, the cost of labor for a state legislator in Oklahoma is X. The cost of labor for a state legislator in Nevada is X, and just treat it that way.
What do y'all think about that?
Do we compare maybe the per diem of the other states to see how much more or less that per diem is? So, that kind of encompasses to some extent size and location and geography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I guess may play into that, since we're bringing in basically total compensation, there are a number of the legislatures that do have pensions as part of their compensation, but there's a number of them that don't. And maybe we narrow that focus down then to those that include the pensions as part of that. Joshua.
Well, I mean, that's just part of the total compensation. If they don't include it, they don't include it. I don't know that we necessarily need to, we do, but that's still, but it's not, it's the fact that we do, doesn't mean that we shouldn't compare ourselves also to those who don't. I mean, it's part of total compensation.
Right, I know, but I mean, if you're looking,
the ones that don't may have higher pay. They may make up for it someplace else, or they may do something else, or they may simply say, "Listen, we're just not going to include you in that." I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to say, if there's a state that doesn't have. Let's suppose it's a state that doesn't have much of a larger per diem for somebody who's some distance away. We that'll come out in the wash. That'll come out as something that we provide that they don't. I mean, I think it's important that if we were the only state, let's suppose there were two states that included pensions in this, and we would only compare ourselves to the other state that includes pensions. That doesn't. I mean, it's a total compensation package.
right, but if we're comparing, salaries, just other than themselves, that compensation might not necessarily show up in that salary.
It's a total compensation package. I mean, Nebraska pays their people like $12,000 for the session. They would not include. I mean, I think you include what you're giving people.
So are you saying, Josh, quickly, sorry to interrupt, but are you saying to include pension as a factor on a consideration and comparison, or are you saying not to include pension as a?
No, I think we include it, and I don't think we limit that comparison just to states that also include it.
Yeah, I think we need to be aware of it, but I don't think we limit ourselves to that.
Okay. All right. So the three that I have so far is cost of living, cost of labor, and pension. What are we missing? Or are we missing? An additional factor.
Oh, Mercer just joined.
Yes, I've been on and listening for quite some time, but it just would not let me unmute. I tried multiple times, so I had to rejoin. So I'm here now, but I have been listening for about 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say let them go really quick.
Yeah. So Leah, we're at a point where if you want to go ahead and present or comment on what you've heard in this discussion.
Yeah, I guess, from what I'm hearing so far, I feel like it's it's challenging to really understand where you want to go and what recommendations you want to make because you just don't have the data, right? So I think all of the considerations that you have on the page are important. I think with that information, you can then say, you know, this is what we pay, this is what they pay, and then are we able to collect information on these other factors? Do they have a pension? If so, what type is it? You know, there's a lot of things that go into this, but I think without the data, it's just challenging to pick, you know, of those 6 things, which do you want to look at? I do agree with what some of you all have talked about in terms of the geography, in terms of the geographic distance. I feel like, you know, some people will have to make the distance and some people will not. And so that would typically, I would assume, be taken care of in a, you know, reimbursement, stipend, et cetera. But without the data and information, I can't say that as a fact. But otherwise, I think all the other factors, you know, are something that you would want to make sure are considered when we're gathering the information.
Okay.
So I guess my question for Mercer is, I know we're kind of trying to isolate which one of these we want to look at consideration. Is it easy for you to get all of that data to us so that way we can better analyze it? Or is it better if we specify 3 or 4 of those data points?
I don't think that any of those will be hard to get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we could collect them, and then we can decide which ones are more important than others.
Well, I mean, in my mind, it's really more important to, not more important. In my mind, I believe what we're really trying to get to is what other comparable states, you know, what other states do we want to look at, right? And no other state is going to have the same makeup as you all when you're looking at those factors that are on the page. So instead, I think we need to say, let's agree on which other states we want to look at. And as we look at that, we will find some will probably be more, some will probably be less in terms of what they're paying. But we have to take that information of the compensation into consideration and the context of those factors that are on the page. Right? So they might be paying less, but they have a lower cost of living, or maybe they pay less, but they have a higher cost of living, or, you know, so it's kind of an interplay of all of them. So I think we should collect everything that's on the page, and I think it's all important to consider and how that compares to you all. But I think the second thing that's really important that we have to all agree on is, you know, who are we going to compare ourselves to?
So in essence, take 2 or 3 of these data points to say similar states in these data points to better compare so we know what numbers we're looking at. And again, I know some of us on here are disagreeing with that we should compare to other states to begin with, but again, that's not the point here. It's more so we know what our numbers are on that one. So to that end is, do we look at states that are similar in cost of living, cost of labor, and pension, and then start from there, and then we get the data all together? Sounded like those were the 3 points there, and I would be in favor of that.
Right. And possibly geographic.
And possibly population.
Yeah, and I think all of those would be easy to find without a lot of research, right? I mean, yes, it's going to take research and we need to validate it and make sure it's accurate and all of that. I think the one thing that is going to take a little bit more deeper research, so it's almost like we have to kind of come up with the comparables before we find the information. It's like, which do you find first, is the pension. Because it's not like, do they have a pension or not, right? Like it's got to be, well, what is the pension? And I know Joshua has his hand up, so I want to make sure.
All right. Thanks, Leah. Joshua.
Yeah, well, right. And so that's, I mean, you're right. The pension may be a little maybe a little, it may be more complicated than we can really get our arms around, but at least maybe there's something we can look at. One thing that we should also be careful about is in terms of the per diem, especially for well, in term, and I guess this would be true whether someone's coming from a distance or not. Colorado, I believe the per diem is on a pure reimbursement basis. There are some places where the per diem is simply, $250 a day, and you're sleeping in your brother's basement, and you're not paying any, you're buying him breakfast. You still get the $250 a day. So we should also be mindful of that.
Mm.
If there's a way, if there's a way of kind of accounting for that, that one is on a receipt basis, and one is just on have legislature was in session that day, you get your per diem.
So I think that's something that could
Gotcha.
come after we see the states. So, and again, I'm kind of harping on moving forward, but I would
Mhm.
say comparing the top three then as a basis of comparing to the other states, so we then can look at what the other numbers mean. Living, labor, and population would be one way to go.
Mhm.
Why population?
Similar, in, I guess.
Population, you gotta,
yeah.
you gotta represent
to
more
some
people.
extent, the judicial pay is that percentage is how many cases are they seeing, which is probably going to be a basis of population as well. So, I mean, that's kind of related there. So in a way, I could be wrong there. Again, I'm throwing that out there. So I'm not stuck on that.
Yeah, I out of all these cost of labor and cost of and population mean the least to me. You're still spending the same amount of time in committee meetings and legislative things and campaigning, and I don't want to pay people to campaign. Senators in populated states get paid the same as senators in Wyoming. So I just don't understand why population is an issue.
Mm. You don't think you have to spend more time outreaching town halls and
No, you don't have to
whatnot?
do any of that. That's, what you do for campaigning and constituent services is not part of your official job as a state legislator. That's part of you are paid to vote on bills, make amendments to bills. Yeah, a lot goes into that, or a little. As a guy, a former elected official here, I've known people. I spent a lot of time for my $250 a month elected position, and I had people on the same board who spent nothing more than the time at the official meeting. Why one should get paid more than the other doesn't make sense.
Mm.
We're not. I'm strongly believe our job here is not to pay these people to campaign, to do voter outreach. Town halls are nice and wonderful, but they're also a reason, that's part of a campaign strategy as well. That's not what we pay them for. We pay them to make tough decisions. And they're not easy decisions, but that's what they get paid for. And just if you're going to put it in the minutes, again, I know I'll be strongly outvoted on this. All of these considerations of comparing to any other states, to me, makes no sense. We're Colorado, and we've never had a lack of people running for office. We can do what's right for Colorado without looking. I've just seen the game so often, particularly with city managers and executive directors of special districts, of the compare to other states game, and I find that to be the wrong way to do business.
Gotcha. All right. Leah, did you have any other questions for the group before we let you get out of here?
No, I really think the key is to figure out, who we're comparing ourselves to. I mean, that's what we're really trying to. That's the decision we're trying to make, I believe. As I've just heard you all, talk more, I'm just wondering like, because I have not been involved in all the conversations, of course, and I don't have all the background and context, but
Mhm.
is there a specific problem that you're trying to solve? Is it hard to get people to do this? Is it someone complained? You know, what was kind of the impetus for this inquiry?
The state legislature told us to do it.
Okay.
Right, right.
I will say my interest in this committee is looking at making a state legislature's job equitable so any Coloradan can do that job.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Well, I mean, I think it doesn't hurt to look at all the considerations that are on the page again, because those are things that are going to be easy to collect. So it's not like it's not going to be more time for someone to find that information, whether it be Mercer or someone else, other than the pension. So I do think, you know, whatever you decide you want to compare yourselves to, there's only so many things you compare yourselves to, right? Because that job or position only exists in certain places. Um, other than the pension, you know, I do think you'll find some varying differences for sure, but those varying differences can potentially be explained by looking at those other factors. So it's important, I feel like, to look at them, you know, to look at them both in combination.
Yeah, and if we're looking at other states with the per diem for the longer travel, we're looking at $120 to $1,254 a day. So that universe is pretty wide.
Right. And as
Mhm.
someone mentioned also, it's like you have no idea what the rules around that per diem are, right? Do you just get it? Do you have to, you know, submit your miles? I mean, it would be a very in-depth research project that could probably be done, right? But I don't think that's really what you all are looking for. I think we definitely have to look at both.
Okay.
So if we're to instruct Mercer today to say, get states and data comparing to these states, what are our criteria? My vote is living and labor then based on our conversations.
Right.
With
But
that,
the other thing I heard her say was to get that information, it wouldn't make that much of a difference to just get it all versus to just get a couple of things.
Correct me if I'm wrong
Mhm.
though. Didn't Leah, you say that we need kind of some direction on what states to compare to make it easier for us?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
So that's what I mean. What criteria are we using to compare to states? Again, this is not to say
Oh,
this is what our recommendation is. This is,
right.
we need to get the data.
Got you.
And typically it would be, you know, some of those considerations. And then also typically, but again, it depends on the type of work and the job and all the things, it would be, you know, the surrounding as well. I mean, usually the heart of it is really, you know, where are you getting those people from and where are you losing those people to? And because this is such a unique position, that's not as reflective of what we would normally do if we're looking at, you know, some other job in terms of supply and demand of that type of work in a geographic area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, then that's what I've got down for the agreed ones with cost of living, cost of labor. And I thought I heard I also heard geographic. Joshua.
Which
For-
one? Geographic size or geographic location and region?
I thought it was geographic size for having to travel.
I I don't think it's relevant. I think if it's a smaller state, then they don't have, if it's let's suppose, again, I'll make up a state that may or may not have a part-time legislature. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
Let's say Connecticut, where it's easy to drive in every day.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a per diem that is a distance per diem where they're paying for overnight. So we don't make that comparison. We just compare our legislators who don't have to stay overnight to their legislators who don't have to stay overnight. I don't think geographic size is I think we can filter for that. I don't think that's important.
Okay.
I don't think a bigger state is necessarily more complex. I don't think a smaller state is necessarily simpler.
So then are we just looking at cost of living and cost of labor?
And cost of labor includes what we had discussed before, like the compensation that is, okay, yeah, no,
The total compensation.
I'm
Yep.
good. I'm good with that.
I'm good as a starting point on those. Yes.
Is everybody else okay with that?
One special thing to look at that should be relatively easy to look up. When you're looking at, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump, but it just occurs to me now, if we're talking about per diem, one thing that we might look at is the actual cost of lodging in the capital cities. So that if someone's getting a $200, getting an extra, I'll make up the number, $150 a night, that might mean more in one place than another place. They might get an extra $75 a night, but it's only because the hotels are cheap there. So if there's some way of, I'm sure that data is available, the median hotel cost for, lodging cost for a city. That way you're really getting an apples to apples. And there's another reason that's helpful. Again, I don't know what this is going to give us. I'm just thinking in terms of fairness, if we're making a comparison, that if somebody is, if one state is, doesn't require receipts and has a cheaper hotel, then they're getting more, right? If they do require receipts and they have more expensive hotels, then they're getting less. And so that's the kind of thing that we can are you really getting, if you can pocket that extra $45 a night, well, that's nice,
Right.
So that may help as well.
Gotcha. Barb.
I just wanted to do a real quick time check. We are 12 minutes over our ending time and just want to be respectful of everybody else's time.
Also, you put something in the comment, Barb, about the that we weren't necessarily responsible for adjusting the per diem.
Yeah, if we
You're
look
making a
back,
recommendation on that.
I would just say that if we look back at the couple of slides ago, which this will be shared with everybody once we finish the meeting, I'll send it out. It'll be in the drive. That the per diem rate is not one of the criteria that the commission has been charged with recommending. So on a couple of slides back, and I know Annabelle, she's got another meeting she has to go to. So that's all I would say.
All right. Cool. Well, Leah, thanks. We'll get in touch with you too. Do you have enough information?
Yes.
You do. Okay, good.
Okay. If there's anything else, I will hear from Barb. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah.
Bye-bye.
All right.
I need to get running as well.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good conversations. I appreciate it all.
All right. You all take care. We'll adjourn for this meeting and pick it up on the next one.